And going back to our top story, we are joined by our guest, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General of Research and Information Systems for Developing Countries, RIS, which is a New Delhi-based think tank. Thank you very much, Professor Chaturvedi. What is driving, what is the driving force of the Indian economy? Does the budget provide the right impetus for that driving force?
Thank you, Mark. And I think we have been discussing this week in terms of the strength of economy, the power it gets. And as Prime Minister today asked industry, how is the Josh? So I think the idea that has moved from sentiments to confidence that Prime Minister spoke today, I think has largely set out the way economy has evolved in last 10 years or so. And I think the speech was full with numbers which are so startling in terms of how the size of the economy, the budget has grown. And he was so emphatic in terms of pointing it out that in 2013-14, the size of the budget was just 16 lakh crores. Right. And now in 24-25, it stands at 48 lakh crores. So this marked expansion is also reflected in the priority that we see in capital expenditure, which stands at 11 lakh crores now, and it was only 4 lakh crores in 14. So this shows how the basics are clear, right, and precise.
Indeed. Dr. Chaturvedi, 28% higher allocation for skill development. Now, put this into context for us. How long does India have this window of opportunity of demographic dividend? And how important is this in the march towards a Viksit Bharat?
Mark, if we see the demographic dividend, there are three different calculations which are available, but most of the economies are likely to have this when the average age reaches 57. And this is available to us till 2052. So that's when India's average population would cross 57. And that's when we would be falling into a completely graying economy. So it's there till 2047. So Viksit Bharat that we are talking of, India would become richer before India would get sort of gray. So from that point of view, it would be important for us to march on the path of Viksit Bharat.
Professor Chaturvedi, we are also facing an extremely harsh summer. We showed some reports about that as well. How urgent is the priority on energy transition?
That is extremely important, and I think India has already embarked on the journey. Today again in his speech, Prime Minister talked about energy transition and also about green hydrogen. Both are important in terms of how this transition happens. The fact that renewable energy, as per our goals for Agenda 2030, is moving on track. Our idea of Har Ghar Solar is something which is taking shape, and also our transition in terms of renewables running public transport is going to go far more deeper through the budgetary allocations that have been made. So a large sum of our commitments are very much on track. The idea of net zero by 2070, if that has to be turned into action, there are certain measures which are to be taken, and fortunately they have been initiated. Our idea of having a mix by 2030 of 30% renewable energy coming in our overall basket, I think we are very much on the track to achieve that mark.
Dr. Chaturvedi, what more does India need to do, to raise its share in the global economy?
See, there are multiple ways one may achieve this, but for a country like India, where we bypass the manufacturing sector and straightaway jumped into services sector, could not create the capital base that we required. And for last 10 years, consistent effort to focus on capital expenditure for infrastructure, capital expenditure for climate resilient cities and urban spaces, all-weather roads and rural areas. So the first and foremost task before us is to expand and continue to expand capital expenditure. At this point, India is already contributing 16% to the global GDP. We need to expand that. CapEx would be the best way to focus on in terms of how we create that base for expansion of manufacturing sector. And manufacturing expansion, the 14 sector focus of PLI is one way, but we need to see how manufacturing share of India should go forward.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi. Thank you for enlightening us on various aspects of the Indian economy.